This is the thing that all the distractions are there for, to keep you from learning. The endless trivialities, the nonsense you hear on the news, all the video games, all the nonsense television, the sports, it's all there to keep people from understanding this, the real law of attraction and how to apply it in your life. From my years of being inside occult traditions that are very, very dark, from firsthand experience, I'm telling you, this is what they don't want you to know. This knowledge is the most deeply occulted or hidden information that exists on this planet. You will not find any more hidden information. But what you have to understand right off the bat is that the word occult, it's simply derived from Latin, the Latin adjective occultus. Occultus in Latin means hidden from sight. And it's derived from the Latin noun oculus, which means eye. From the term oculus comes the verb occultare. Occultare means to hide, to conceal, or to keep secret, to keep hidden from the eye so that it cannot be seen. So please keep in mind, occulted knowledge is hidden. This is going to differ quite widely from what people have heard in the New Age community and in the New Age movement regarding what the law or laws of attraction are. These are the real laws of attraction you're going to be hearing today and hopefully understanding today. Human beings everywhere say that they want certain things in their life, and they say that they want certain things to be present for all humanity. Okay? We say we want certain conditions to be present for ourselves and our species as a whole. We say we want things such as happiness, health, peace, prosperity, freedom, etc. And all these things are great things to aspire to, right? Well, this is what the real laws of attraction are about. Specific requirements exist in order for human beings to obtain the conditions that they say they want. Those conditions do not just magically manifest by magical means automatically. If you're okay with things being the way that they are now, requirement doesn't exist. You just accept the default conditions the way they are now and go on with your existence and accept it's going to be this way and possibly get worse. But if you want real change to happen, requirements exist. And this is what many New Age teachers will not tell you, or they'll outright deny that requirements exist for creating real change. This is a key concept to understand. So what are these requirements? We need to know certain things. Knowledge is required. Knowledge that will spur us to action. That's what's required. The information regarding natural law is occulted knowledge. It is knowledge that has been hidden from humanity. It's held by the few, which is represented here at the top of this pyramid. You can look at this as a pyramid representing knowledge or ignorance. It's the higher you go in the pyramid, the more knowledge. But the pyramid tapers because at the top, very few people understand that information. Down here, you have no knowledge, the ignorant masses. There's two general bodies of occult knowledge. In the actual mystery traditions and in occult schools, they talk about these as arcana. The word arcana is also Latin. It means knowledge. So there's two bodies of knowledge. There's one body of knowledge in the occult called lesser arcana, the lesser arcana or the minor arcana. Knowledge of the microcosm. This means the knowledge of human consciousness, how it works, how it operates, what our motivations are. The second body of occult knowledge is called the greater arcana or the major arcana, the understanding of the very large laws of nature that govern the macrocosm. And what I call here today, under the umbrella, the term natural law, falls into that second category of greater knowledge, the greater arcana of occult knowledge. We could talk about the word natural here too. Natural is derived from the word neter. Neter means spirit in ancient Egyptian. Al as a suffix actually means of or related to. So natural, if you put these root words together, neter and al, right? It means of or related to the realm of spirit. And what these natural laws are unseen and universal spiritual laws which govern the consequences of behavior for beings that are capable of coming to their understanding. This body of knowledge has actually been called consequentialism by past researchers and teachers. It's been called karma, karmic law in many Middle Eastern and Eastern traditions. It has been called in some of the Western traditions and Christian traditions moral law. Religionists have called it God's law. Why is this knowledge hidden away from people? Because if someone else is an extreme level of knowledge, like something as trivial as how human consciousness works, how human motivations work, how human perceptions work, how human beings can be manipulated, if somebody has deep knowledge of that information, and there's a whole bunch of people over here who have not one iota of how that works, what kind of a number do you think somebody can do on people like that? The knowledge is hidden to create and maintain a power differential between those who hold it and those who are ignorant of it. It's that simple. Truth versus human perception. Truth is objective. That means that it's not dependent upon the perceptions of human beings. See these white lines? Imagine these white lines that do not waver as truth. And imagine that the perception that is set against the truth is what I would refer to as consciousness. If your consciousness is high, meaning it's at a high frequency, that means you're going to have more of an ability to understand and recognize the patterns. The longer the wavelength, the shorter the frequency. What that means is how frequently is it going to be intercepting the line that represents truth. The higher the frequency, the more in tune with truth we are. What would happen if this frequency became infinitely high? It would be indistinguishable from a line. And therefore, someone would be aligned to that which is their perception of reality being accurate. The concept to keep in mind here is perception is not reality. It is just what it says, perception, seeing through, perceive, to see through something. I perceive things differently without these glasses. That's one perception. When I put them on, I perceive things quite differently and more clearly. Well, that's how human perception works, like a lens. It's a filter. But what's there is the same thing. What's there is the same thing. All that changes how I perceived it. But most people in the world think, they kind of believe that they're the arbiter of truth. And that's a bad place to be in. That's a very, very low level of consciousness. To think that if I don't believe that it's this way, it's not this way. Many people are trapped in that state of mind. So let's look at consciousness and the human brain. Being conscious of something is an ability of the being to recognize patterns and meaning with respect to events taking place within oneself, the microcosm, the individuated consciousness, and in the realm in which the self exists and operates, the macrocosm. And the events taking place is the truth. So it's our ability to accurately perceive truth of what has happened and what is happening. That's consciousness. That's consciousness. Now, how does consciousness express? The expressions for consciousness are thoughts, emotions, and actions, which are likened to, in the consciousness community, of mind, spirit, and body. And it's a trinity. A father creator, which is the thoughts, the mind, the feminine essence, which is the mother of the trinity, the emotions, the inward aspects, the spirit. And then they give birth. When the thoughts and the emotions come together, they give birth to action in the world, which is the male child. This is very important to understand. I hope everybody is clear. This is our internal trinity, which constitutes the expressions for consciousness. Consciousness is an intangible force, okay? It's something that exists, but you can't really see it. But there is physiological expressions for consciousness in the physical domain, and the brain is one of them. We need to understand the basic structure of the brain to understand the types of imbalances that go on within it that lead to these debilitating conditions within humanity that continue to create suffering for us. Down here is the reptilian brain. It's comprised of the brain stem right here, and this part of the brain is called the cerebellum. These two components together essentially comprise the R complex. The R complex is the lowest consciousness part of the brain. We don't do any thinking with this part of the brain. It's the reactive part of the brain. Now, up here in this middle part of the brain, these are all the different glands like the hypothalamus, the thalamus, the pituitary and pineal glands, etc., that comprise the midbrain or the limbic system. All human emotions are facilitated, are made possible by this part of the brain. The neocortex is the outer casing, basically, of the telencephalon, the higher brain. This part of the brain facilitates all higher order thinking. What you have to understand about the telencephalon, or the hemispheres of the brain, is that they're first of all bilaterally symmetrical, and they generally control different functions of thought. The left brain largely facilitates logic and scientific thought, while the right brain hemisphere largely facilitates creativity and compassion. When we have a balance between the two, that's when we're operating on all cylinders, so to speak. That's when real consciousness and pattern recognition is developed. And that's when real morality and ethical considerations are also created within the personality, within the being. And that's when true intelligence is born. People have equated intelligence with intellect, especially in the Western society. Intellect is not intelligence. Intelligence comprises more than intellect. Intellect is left brain understanding. True intelligence is holistic understanding, with the right brain included in the process, the nurturing, compassionate, creative, and intuitive sides of the consciousness together with the intellectual aspect of the consciousness. And you could see this in the word. Intelligence, right? Intella is where intellect comes from, okay? And gens, G-E-N-C-E, comes from the Latin verb generare. Generare means to generate or to create. So it's the creative aspect of the personality, or the right brain. So intellect plus creativity, logical thinking plus nurturing and compassion. That's real intelligence, holistic intelligence. And most people in our society are not in holistic intelligence. They're in one form of brain imbalance or the other. If a human being's left brain hemisphere becomes chronically dominant, the R complex will take over executive function of the brain, and the person will become ruled by selfishness and base desires. And they will develop a personality that is based in domination and control. Conversely, if a human being's right brain hemisphere becomes chronically dominant, the limbic system will take over executive function of the whole brain, and the person will become ruled by their own emotions and develop a personality that is based in submissiveness and naivete. Okay? Now this is critical, because this is not only a schism within the individual consciousness, it's a schism of worldview, of the way we view ourselves in the world and the way we view our relationship to others in the world. Natural law is expressed through 7 basic underlying principles, plus what I have referred to as an 8th or hidden principle. This 8th principle, which I call the lost principle, binds all the other 7 principles together. These principles together constitute a master key through which universal wisdom, including the knowledge of the requirements to obtaining what we desire, is then unveiled or de-occulted. These 7 general principles, they are mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, which is a huge one, and gender. The principle of mentalism states that the all is mind. Everything in creation is actually a manifestation of mind. The principle of correspondence states that that which is above is similar or like to that which is below. And that which is below is like to that which is above. It's a mirror, okay? The above is like the below is like the above. The principle of vibration simply states that there is no such thing as rest. If something's in existence, it's in motion. Everything moves, everything vibrates, and at the most fundamental level, the universe and every single thing which comprises it is ultimately pure vibratory energy that is manifesting itself in different ways, different frequencies, different vibratory forms. The principle of polarity states that everything has a dual nature to it. There are polarities in everything that exists. Everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. However, opposites, they are identical in nature, but they're different in degree. Principle of rhythm. Everything has a rhythm to it or a swing to it. The pendulum swing manifests in everything that we undergo, everything that we perceive. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Cause and effect. This is the principle here in natural law that most fits in with how I'm using the term natural law today. So the principle of cause and effect simply states that every cause has its effect and every effect has its cause. Every single thing that occurs happens according to law. Chance is a name for law, a law not recognized. The final principle of the 7 principles of natural law are gender. Again, I'm going to talk about an 8th lost one. Gender exists in everything. Everything has its masculine and its feminine components or principles. Gender manifests on all planes of existence. Spiritual, mental, physical, everything. This is the 8th principle of natural law, which binds all of the other principles together. Okay? It's the container inside which all the other principles fit. And it's the thing that has to be present in order for any change to manifest itself. It is known as the generative principle, or the principle which governs creation, which actually is the causal factor that goes into effect and generates the result that we say that we want. The generative principle is the dynamic of care. What we care about on a day-to-day basis acts as the driving force of our thoughts and actions. Because what we care about determines what we think about on a daily basis most of the time, and therefore how we behave. And this doesn't mean be ignorant of what's going on in the world and don't look at anything that's negative because you're going to feed that and give power to it. That's not what it means. That means, you know what you're feeding? In that instance, if you want to do that, you're feeding ignorance. And that's what's going to grow. By ignoring the negative, you are ensuring that more of it occurs. You are fueling it by ignorance. What care has to be looked at here as is, this is what you're giving your energy to. This is what you're focused upon. This is what you actually care enough about to do, to spend your time on, to put your attention on, to manifest in the world. That's what generates our experience in the aggregate. Most people do not care enough, even if they say, they pay lip service, okay, and say that they want things to be different. They don't care enough to actually change it through their actions. Therefore, it is an impossibility for us in the aggregate to change the direction of energy, to change the direction of consciousness, and ultimately to get what we say we want. That's how the real law of attraction works. Care comes first. You got to care enough to know, to develop the knowledge. Okay? Then you got to act on it and put it into practice. Apply it. So that's the order. Heart, mind, guts. Care, knowledge, action. Those are the steps. And all 3 of those have to be in place. All 3. That's what unity consciousness is. It's unifying thoughts, emotions, and actions. What we think, how we feel, and how we act are one and the same. There's no contradiction. That's unity consciousness.